Hi guys, welcome to Family Law in Kenya. My name is Rogers Gilinji, a creator of Nairobi Legal, a place where students come to get a simple guide to studying law in Kenya. So this new month we are going to be introducing a series of videos on matters family law in Kenya. But specifically for this video, we are going to be focusing on matrimonial property. And so with that brief introduction, we all know that marriages occur, and at some point some partners may undergo a divorce. And so what happens when there is a divorce and the parties to a marriage had property together? So the essence of this video is for you to understand how this property is divided. And so with that, a brief introduction again. As you can see from your screens, we are focusing on matrimonial property after the collapse of a marriage. Now, if you've downloaded your Constitution of Kenya 2010 under section 45, it provides for a definition of what a family is. And so, again, furthermore to section 45.3, when it comes to marriage, parties to marriage are entitled to equal rights at the time of the marriage, during the marriage, at the dissolution of the marriage, meaning that you have equal rights throughout. And so here the question that comes out is that does this marital equality recognized in the Constitution mean that matrimonial property should be divided equally? Of course, up to this point, the answer is no. So simply because you have equal rights during the marriage and after the marriage, it doesn't mean that that equality of rights transcends to matrimonial property. And we are going to find out the reason why. So why is this so? When we come again to section, or rather article 68 of the Constitution, it provides that Parliament is obliged to pass laws to recognize and protect matrimonial property, particularly the matrimonial home. So with this article of the Constitution, we will have, of course, the Matrimonial Property Act coming into play. So in terms of the Matrimonial Property Act of Kenya 2013, please remember to download this act. It's very short, and so you can easily understand it. In this act, we have section 7 that provides that subject to section 6.3, ownership of matrimonial property vests in spouses according to the contribution of either spouses towards the acquisition, and shall be divided between the spouses if they divorce or after their marriage is otherwise dissolved. So you see that when it comes to matrimonial property, upon your divorce or when your marriage no longer actually exists legally, then that property that you had together will be divided according to the contribution you made to the property. So it's not a direct answer that because you have equality during the marriage and after the marriage, it doesn't mean that, again, that equality can be pushed to ownership of the property. And so in this regard, we have, again, we move on to this slide that speaks to what does contribution mean? Because remember, matrimonial property has to be divided based on the contribution of each party. And so contribution is defined under section 2 of the Matrimonial Property Act to mean both monetary and non-monetary contribution. So I want us to understand contribution from a two-point perspective. And so in this regard, we have non-monetary contribution. What does it mean? So you could have made contribution to matrimonial property as far as non-monetary contribution is concerned, or you could have actually contributed money directly into that matrimonial property. So the examples of non-monetary contribution to matrimonial property could be if you are a lady, of course, as a wife, you did domestic work and management of the matrimonial home. This can be considered as non-monetary contribution to the matrimonial property. Childcare, companionship, the love and care you give to your husband, management of family business and property. Of course, as a wife, your husband could be traveling a lot and you're the one who manages the family business and property. And so, of course, in the next slide, we'll understand also what exactly does family property mean, or rather family business. Or you could have been involved in farm work. So these examples amount to non-monetary contribution. Now, of course, when it comes to monetary contribution, this means that you directly got money and contributed to acquiring that matrimonial property. And so in this regard, what does a family business mean? So a family business, again, when you check the Matrimonial Property Act, means that a business that is run for the benefit of the family by both spouses or either spouse. And number 2, it generates income or other resources, wholly or part, and are for the benefit of the family. So this is what a family business means. So remember that when it comes to contribution to matrimonial property, it can either be monetary contribution or non-monetary contribution. And so a combination of the above provisions of the Constitution, remember we started from Article 45(3) of the Constitution of Kenya, and then we went to Article 68, and then we came to the Matrimonial Property Act 2013, Section 7 and 6(3). So a combination of the above provisions of the Constitution and the Matrimonial Property Act has settled the law on matrimonial property and chartered a clear vision for the future. So I want us to be able to understand what exactly amounts to matrimonial property, and does it mean that you have to share this property equally? Of course, the answer there we already agreed is no. You can't share matrimonial property equally simply because the Constitution says you have equal rights during the marriage, because the consideration will be made in Section 7 of the Matrimonial Property Act, read together with Section 6(3), that provides that for you to have that property given to you upon dissolution of the marriage, you must show a contribution to that property, which can be either monetary or non-monetary contribution. And so in this regard, the next video we are going to be focusing on what is matrimonial property, and we are going to discuss in detail the question of equality of rights between a wife and a husband when it comes to matrimonial property. And I will also be providing you with a live case that was ruled at the Court of Appeal of Kenya. This is the case of PNN versus ZWN, and this case, of course, has settled what constitutes to contribution as far as matrimonial property is concerned. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to subscribe so that you can watch the entire course.